Hello and welcome to another rousing edition of Trending Topics with BB. I am your humble host, Brooke Brown, now hence the BB. Well, we are back with another rousing podcast episode, but I was informed my intros on the previous ones have gotten a little bit lengthy, so I will keep it as short as possible. So here I go. Head to trendingtopicswithbbpodcast.com. That is where you'll find anything and everything related to this podcast. If you have forgotten what I just said, which is trendingtopicswithbbpodcast.com, you can just Google Trending Topics with BB Podcast, and you will find pretty much every link that this podcast is associated with. But nonetheless, trendingtopicswithbbpodcast.com is the official website. Along those lines, if you are a Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or any of the like subscriber of podcasts, please leave a favorable rating and comment. It helps this podcast be found by other listeners, and hopefully you are finding it informative as well as entertaining. Well, with the housekeeping out of the way, I want to introduce my guest, who actually was a previous guest, but the audio of that chat was lost due to the app we used 2 years ago. So, fast forward to now, and we were able to record audio with updated technology. And as I mentioned in the chat, we are definitely a world away from each other. So the beauty of this new technology and the internet and such. But nonetheless, we connected through our mutual love of trance music. We go into a little bit about his background and a lot more. I'm talking about my chat with Kostas W. Voulgaris. This episode of Trending Topics with BB is brought to you by Teeth Powder 2.0. Have you been looking for a toothpaste alternative that does not contain fluoride? Do you have sensitive teeth, bad gums, and overall bad oral hygiene? Then Teeth Powder 2.0 is the product for you. Now, Teeth Powder 2.0 was developed out of the necessity to strengthen enamel, get rid of plaque, clean gums, and keep your oral health in tip-top shape. This product is exclusive to my listeners, and you can get your own 70-gram order for just $12 by heading to teethpowder.com, then clicking on the Products tab. Again, that is Teeth Powder, TEEFPOWDER.com, then clicking on that Products tab to get your order. Now have a healthy and prosperous life with Teeth Powder 2.0. We've been trying to reconnect after we chatted a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, I know you have a great blog, and you've been doing a lot of reviews on trance. It's kind of where we connected over the years is through trance. So, to kind of start from the beginning, what drew you to trance music? Because everybody has an origin story.
Yeah, of course. There's a almost everybody has a unique story and how they discovered it or whatnot. Mine was in 1999 when I went on a class trip to the island of Rhodes. Before that, I wasn't into any kind of music. You know, I like kind of some film music, but beyond that, nothing really drew my attention enough that I would want to collect, music or listen to a favorite artist or anything like that. So we went to a club. I remember it was called Kin Size, and that was like a triple room venue. And in one of the rooms, it was playing, electronic music, which at the time I wasn't really familiar with. But I was like, wow, what is this? I mean, tracks like ATB's The Summer and stuff like that. I remember it was, I think, a remix of Braveheart and stuff. I was like, wow, this is the music that, I was waiting for. This is what really I was passionate about. Like, I found what interested me in music. Before that, it was nothing really specifically. So since then, I started, to investigate and try to collect music and kind of try to be more involved. I mean, before that, there was no YouTube or any of that. So it was really, lots of research was involved.
Awesome. So before, was there a big scene where you're from, or was it just through your travels? that you were able
Uh,
to?
Well, the thing is, in Greece, I mean, especially on the islands, it at the time after that, it was kind of started to the hype was building, and I mean, there was a, let's say, dance music was around in the clubs. After that, you could, you know, played out in different clubs, even here on the island, and especially, of course, Athens and bigger cities, and they were putting big name DJs and stuff like that. So it had a the hype was building. Uh, Here not so much, but we will have the opportunity of experiencing new tracks for like stuff from Tiesto, Flight 643, Lethal Industry. That stuff was being played out, and it had mostly diversity. I mean, from top 40 type stuff, but they occasionally you'd hear some trance, some house, and that kind of stuff. So you had the opportunity, let's say, to hear some of it, and then via radio and stuff like that.
Okay, so the industry at the time was welcoming of that music. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
you mentioned radio. Now that was
yes.
prior to like the explosion of YouTube. So when internet radio started, did that sort of change the way mainstream radio adapted to trends?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you'll see in that even local stations or even ones in Athens, and that they will embrace in electronic music in general. Not so much trance, but some progressive, some house, some trance. The more, let's say, vocal-driven tunes and stuff like that. But you will see that people will get more involved, and it was a good thing that some of the, let's say, known clubs at the time in the bigger cities will invite in people like Tiesto, Paul Oakenfold, Sasa and Digweed, people like that to come and play, which all kind of inspired local talent to kind of get into this. So it was like a good thing that, got the people more into this kind of music, because before that, they were more, a little bit of everything, or of course the Greek music, which is what they, even till today, I mean, they're more into involved with. But this was a good point in the good direction.
So prior to that, were you into electronic music growing up, or did you have sort of a affinity for, like you said, the local Greek music scene?
No,
Or
no, no, no.
so
Like I said before, I didn't listen to any kind of music. Greek music, I hate to say it, but I detest it. I don't like it at all, uh, which is like an anomaly. um, but like I said, I mean, the only things I would like maybe hear some tracks and from my father's records that were interesting enough, like in rock music or uh, stuff, maybe occasional stuff on the radio, maybe a bit of pop, but nothing enough to say, okay. I mean, I would be maybe at a cafe and hear that it would be okay, it's acceptable, but nothing that interested me enough. And yeah, since '99, when I discovered trance and electronic music in general, I became kind of religiously following that, collecting CDs, collecting tunes, only this and nothing else. And, of course, trying to stay in contact with people that like this kind of stuff, going to clubs whenever there's this kind of music being played, every weekend and stuff like that.
great. So did you ever? You mentioned like um, it inspired a local scene when they started booking great names. Did you ever aspire to be one of those to join the scene in that way?
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, I always at some point wanted to be involved, either as, let's say, being a DJ locally or being on the radio. The thing is, no, there was never any point. I mean, I never got involved into playing at actual events. But I always wanted to be on the radio, which I did at some point. I think it was 2011, maybe. I may be mistaken. I think it was 2011. And I did start my own show called Hidden Sun on a Greek station called Lightwave Radio in Patra. That more or less went over for like, I think 2 years. And then I was on another station called Generate. It was also from Patra. These were internet stations. And after that, I went on to, I think, on a Brazilian station called Rock Natura Mix. And that was like for like 2 years. And then on there, I went on to a French station, which was up to called Pure Hits with the same concept, of the show. And that more or less lasted till last September, I think, because I kind of quit it myself because due to lack of time and other opportunities arising, I just did not have the time to do my show. So I didn't want to, lack in quality or, do a fast job. So I kind of left it myself. Now, at some point, I might come back, but right now, like I said, there's lots of stuff that I'm involved musically in the industry, so I don't have the time to do this, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, I'd wondered because I had tuned in over the last year or so a few times when I could, and I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
yeah.
it. Uh,
Thank you.
so uh, along those lines, I know you like I mentioned when we first started talking. You have a blog, like I have a blog, but your blog trans.nl, right?
Tra- Transfix.nl, yes, yes.
Yeah, right. Um, it's really great, and we kind of have the same taste in trance. I mean, you're a big Marcus Schultz fan, like I am, and you like Cold Harbor.
Yes, of course.
Um, what have in doing your blog and the reviews and the highlights of the tracks and artists that you have? Oh, what has that done in terms of kind of connecting with other maybe artists in the industry? Because you said you've had other opportunities arise. Has that
Yeah,
helped?
yeah.
Uh,
Yes, yes.
kind of
Well, for
talk about
starters,
that.
yeah. Yeah. For starters, transfix.nl is a website, and it's not actually mine. It's some guys from Holland. They invited me to start doing reviews for them. I think it's been like 2 years now, maybe more. And I'm a kind of, a regular reviewer on the site. I also conduct interviews, written interviews with established artists, and I'm, a basic player on that. So, yeah, I do all my reviews for Transfix.nl, always stuff for Cold Harbor, and I've also done for Parallels and lots of labels, actually. I mean, there's a lot of great music coming out, so you try to cover as much as you can. Of course, yes, all of this has helped me out very much, I would say. Lots of great opportunities have arisen from that. As in, I've had the opportunity to meet artists like Marcus Sauls numerous times, Adina Butal, Fisselman from Fisselman and Hawkins, Isaac Vissels, and Anske, and Marcus White, Lady V, basically most of the Cold Harbor family. Also, I had the opportunity to meet and interview Scott Bond, which is a legend, from his Gate Castle days and all that. And the guys, actually, a lot of artists, like even Andy Moore, I met him last year at not last year, 2017 at ADE, and several other artists. So yeah, I mean, for me, I got the opportunity to really have a chat and talk with people, that I admired, the music, and kind of get to know them as a person, and also kind of form, let's say, kind of a friendship with some of them, like with Anske and Fisselman and Lady V, Adina, a lot of them actually, which led to also meeting other people in the industry, like managers and stuff like that, which one of them basically was Scott Barnes' manager, and he is the guy that more or less invited me to my latest musical endeavor, which was Epica Artists. Epica Artists is a management company, and since last September, I was invited by the guy himself, by James, to become one of the managers on the company for Epic Artists. So from then on, I have been learning along the way and managing artists and booking them, for gigs like Matt Daly, Funk Agenda, Colony, Deza, Bjorn Akison. We recently are going to get Dan Thompson and a lot of other artists like Stephen Kirkwood, Matt Fax, the Thrill Seekers, Jess. We have quite a impressive roster, and it seems that we have now at the State of Trance we're going to have Deza and Colony playing, which is really big. Plus, there's also a event that's going to happen in Liverpool on the 15th of March, which is going to have a lot of the guys from Epica, and it's a very new, let's say, concept, because they're going to play, all these guys from the beginning till the end with a kind of a diversity of styles, from techno to progressive trance to full-on trance. So it's be something quite special, I think.
That's awesome. Wow, congrats
Thank you.
on all of that. So you're, I can tell by, your story there that you're enjoying it. What has been the most rewarding in joining kind of the managerial and event planning side of things for you?
Well, I think the nicest part, or let's say the most exciting part, is that you get to connect with all these artists and, kind of form friendships and try to push them musically. And also, you try to, let's say, showcase their names, in the venues and countries that they weren't, let's say, playing at, and kind of, build their fan base. And of course, after that, if you're so, you have the time and that to actually go to the shows and, be a part of it and, have a lot of fun and get into the whole hype of things.
And have you run into any challenges with getting more involved in the industry like this?
Well, I've had other people offer me some opportunities, which I don't know. We'll see if they will come to be, throughout the year. I mean, they were just thoughts, let's say. But being involved with all this stuff, I have written some stuff for people also. Like I did a bio for Fisselman for his official page. He asked me to do it, and I've had other people want me to kind of write press, let's say, releases for the artists, and basically also even from labels or artists, they've asked me to kind of write something about them or about their events or request for interviews and stuff like that, basically.
Great. And was this kind of a journey to get to this part career-wise, or was it just you're happy that your passion is allowed you these opportunities?
Well, I think if you'd asked me, like, I don't know, a few years ago, if I ever expected this would happen, no, I wouldn't expect it. I was always into the music because I enjoy and love the music and have a passion for the music and the artists behind it and the hard work that they put into their shows and their plaques and all that. But to see that, getting involved with this and seeing things coming together and getting more involved in the industry and forming friendships and all that, I think, yeah, it makes me really happy. And I don't know, let's see where it leads. I mean, it's very exciting and makes me feel fulfilled, and I really enjoy doing this. I mean, It's something very interesting, promising, and it means a lot to me.
Well, congrats, and I really enjoy what you're doing. So in I guess because I'm in the U.S. and things are interesting here. You mentioned back when you first fell in love with trance in the '90s and how they were able to adapt to the music. Have you seen? I know music, and especially in electronic music, has changed over the years. Do you Is trance still kind of a niche genre there, or is it more respected than maybe I would realize? Or because here in the U.S., it's kind of you may have seen it's hard here in Arizona to get trance. Um, so are you seeing people enjoy trance, or like you said, is it just all different genres?
Well, basically, I mean, because in Europe, I would say that it's alive and healthy, in like in Holland, in England, in Prague, Czech Republic, in Romania, it's got a rise in trance. In most of Europe, I think trance is going quite well. In Greece, it's always had this kind of stigma as being kind of they kind of, if they're not 100% sure what trance is, they think it's something like how psytrance is, mostly psychedelic, how they used to call it back in the day, and they have this idea that trance is kind of for druggies and stuff like that. They still can't quite figure out that there's got so many subgenres of trance, if they're not, into the scene, if they're not really, they haven't explored the side of trance. I mean, if they hear trance, they think it's something else. Unfortunately, I mean, if you disguise the word trance and you call it, I'm going to play progressive house, and it's a trance party, they'll be more like into it. But if you say trance, they think it's something, to do with pill popping and stuff like that. Unfortunately, it still has that bad, supposedly, reputation for the people that are not too keen on how things are in the industry. But I think in the rest of Europe, I think things are pretty good. And I mean, I saw like it in Transmission in Prague that I went for the first time last year, and it was for the Awakening. That was an amazing event. It had people from all over the world there. It was more or less full on trance the whole night. And I think it had a great vibe, lots of energy. The people loved it, and you could see flags from all over the world, coming even from Mexico. And I mean, it shows that there's still a universal love for trance music. So it's very good to see that, yeah, people are really into it and embracing it, and they haven't gone towards, I don't know, other genres like techno or deep house or stuff like that.
So, do you believe in trying to figure out a way to educate people to eliminate the stigma, or do you more just kind of like that people who are intellectual enough or really are looking for trance music to eventually find it? Because there seems to be kind of a debate on how to expose others to trance or just to keep it kind of as it is, kind of a niche genre. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like, yeah, lots of people prefer to be kind of like this, let's say, trans family, that it's, select, let's say, few, or anyway, like a group. And others are kind of opposed to that, and they want, to be more wide open, for everybody to be a part of it. I think both ways, actually, the best would be the best of both worlds. In other words, I think, yes, it is healthy to bring more people into that kind of music and to explore it and to understand it, because of course you want more people involved, so it will continue to thrive, because people might start dropping out, and things aren't the same. But the only way to actually do that would be with more, let's say, vocal-driven tracks, or kind of slowly to get them into it till they get into the, let's say, the harder type stuff, or anyway, the more melodic. So I think the best way to kind of get people into this would be some, more airplay by, trance tracks on the radio. It doesn't have to be, stuff, non, the instrumentals, to be instrumentals or stuff like that. It could be stuff, with a nice vibe, and vocal driven ones that would of course draw the attention towards trance. And then someone actually likes it could get deeper into, the rest of the style, and kind of understand, what there's got a lot more to trance. There's got quite a lot of diversity actually in the whole genre. So anybody can follow, from what they want that way. Some people could go towards the darker stuff, the techier stuff, the more vocal stuff, the progressive. It's got endless possibilities. I think that when someone discovers trance, he can find exactly the style that he likes the most out of it.
And have you seen issues with certain fans kind of being what I like to call elitist, um, in terms of only liking or trying to convince others that their type of trance or their labels, their favorites are the only ones you should pay attention to, and that others are not as good, even though they're technically trance. Do you see that in Greece or in your travels in Europe as much, or is that more like the internet driving that?
Well, I think the internet has a lot to do with it. I see it a lot, I mean, there's got the, let's say, the hardcore fans. It could be a good thing, but sometimes they can be a bit, dismissive of other artists, and they miss the general vibe of how things are will and kind of supposed to be. Yeah, I've had a few experiences. I mean, once in a while, if you mention like an artist, let's say that you like, when asked, they might, try to convince you that, yeah, this guy's better, or, this guy's no good anymore, or stuff like that. I mean, even I remember one time being at Ministry of Sound, and um, something having a conversation with some random guy, and he was like, he asked me, when was the last time I was at Ministry, and I kind of mentioned that, yeah, I was here to see Marcus Sauls, and like that. He was like, Marcus, yeah, he wasn't really a fan, you could see, but I didn't realize why some would have to, go that way. I mean, everybody likes what he likes. You support what you like, and in the end of the day, don't go to the people or the gigs that you like. Focus on the artists that you enjoy, and there's room for everybody. Something like that is my general vibe of that, my idea.
I agree. I just it's just interesting because maybe it is because we're all online, and there's been a kind of push for trans family all over the world and online, and which is great, but to the extent certain cities or countries are a little bit more blessed than others, and what I mean by that, able to have more events than others, and so I've noticed that there's been kind of people are getting spoiled, so then they think the artist that they like, you know what I'm saying, the vibes that I've
Yeah,
experienced,
yeah,
but that just
yeah.
my opinion on it. But it's interesting because I, we're both connected over this music years ago, and we're from all over the world. I mean, you're in Greece. I'm sitting in Arizona right now. I mean, technology has allowed
Yeah,
us to this conversation.
yeah.
Um, so going forward, do you think you want to continue managing artists and creating events? Is that really what your main job was beforehand, or what kind of was your background before you got into what you're into now?
Well, yeah, that, I mean, basically, I mean, uh, years ago, I was, working in my father's store, And after that, I started running my own business, which is a bakery. So I do that, of course, every day. And all of this to do with music was always my passion, and of course, my basic interest, and it always will be. And of course, yeah, I mean everything that I do with Transfix, with the managing and all of that stuff, it's of course on my other time, and of course I enjoy doing it. And yeah, of course I want to get more involved and put more effort into it, and try to realize more things. And yeah, if I can keep on doing that and growing while I do that, yeah, I'm all for it. And I'll try the hardest I can to, keep being an active part of the community, and to keep on pushing my love for trance music and dance music in general. And yeah, I think it would be very interesting, and let's see what the future holds.
Well, I'm rooting for you. I really excited. Um, I know we both love trance, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention other genres. We talked a little bit about house, a little bit about techno. Um, are you into a lot of the other genres as well? Kind of the evolution, the different sides, the different
Yeah.
way of progressing, maybe even in a set. We see Marcus Schultz do a big rabbit hole part of his open to close, which actually is my favorite part, and most people would say that's more melodic techno than it is trance.
Yeah.
Uh, so what are your thoughts on the blending of genres?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. As long as it's done, as a more or less kind of like you said, like in a journey-like way. Of course, yeah, the OTCs that Marcus does, and especially the way he does it. Yeah, it's an evolution over the night of a few kind of similar genres, kind of coming together harmonically and building up the tension, and of course throughout the night. And yeah, I think it's a good thing. I mean, of course, progressive and melodic techno, the pure techno, tech trance, progressive trance, all of that can be put together. I mean, if you think in the past, they were always doing that, but more because it was not so much of a diversity in the scene. I mean, you'd have some guy that you'd play like a techno track or a techno, let's say, trance track that would fit with a trance set. So it was always being done. Maybe not, how, now in these days, they kind of like they book a trance artist and he's expected to play trance all night long or for 2 hours or whatever. But I think, yeah, that it gives more room for experimentation in the DJ sets. It gives more way for artists to be able to connect, and create maybe more interesting tracks, like a fusion of techno and trance, kind of like the Alchemy Nights. I mean, they kind of created a whole new sound with what they do, and I think both techno and trance fans could relate to that. You got Alec Pritz that he's doing his own thing, and it's finding his tracks have been found in the way into trance artists' sets, and it's kind of become like a perfect amalgamation of the artists and fusing those sounds, the sets with these sounds, and that way they have more liberty to be able to build those sets appropriately. As in, if you started off only with trance, they would kind of be the same more or less tempo all night. I mean, yeah, you'd have some of the slower stuff, but you need a little bit of the others to kind of be able to heighten or decrease the way of the set. So yeah, I think it's a good thing, and if it's done right, it's the best thing.
I agree. It's just curious because I've experienced recently people only liking certain genres, but maybe it's just the interesting experience I've had here living in Arizona. But so what are your thoughts going forward for trance music as a whole? Do you think it's going in the right direction? Do you think it's kind of lofty to put huge expectations for trance? Being that there's so many artists, do you think that maybe there are too many artists right now, or do you think that it's great like that? I've just heard a lot of different opinions on
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, because that way you wouldn't want like let's say a select few artists doing kind of basically the same kind of thing. Because even as good as it might be, after a while, I think the fans might go, tired of it, and they want things to kind of, change a bit or kind of become more fresh. And yeah, I mean, lots of people like the classic plant sound. It's great, but you kind of want things to evolve a bit in the right way, of course. I mean, over the years, trance has evolved and become different. I mean, I remember the classic plant sound, what you were hearing way back, like what stuff Oakenfold was playing and Tiesto was playing. And now it kind of things tended to be like in 2005 more melodic and kind of a hype mixture of progressive with melodic trance, which was kind of stuff like how Andy Moore was making and stuff like that. And then we saw things kind of going to another direction, kind of more techy, uh, and of course the rise of the vocal trance and all of that stuff, towards even the side trance and stuff like that. So things do change, and you got, of course, the people that don't want things to change and they want to remain the same, and then you got the others that want to see things, in a different perspective and see fresh ideas come into the scene. So I think all these artists that have evolved and come into the scene, you see that they kind of take, each one has their own, let's say, ideas or influences, and together with that, you see that they can inspire us with new ideas, together with old ideas, and kind of create something else. So you have more of a diversity and much more interest. There's more of a wider canvas that they can work on, as in to stay kind of to the limited stuff, which of course the technology has helped out, because in the past, from what I know, everybody was using, hardware to create music. Now everything is with synthesizers and VSTs and all that stuff that's been done via software. So it's a lot easier for people to start to want to make music and to get into it. It's not so you didn't have to put so much money into it. So that way, it kind of makes people want to become more artists around and to kind of create their own music. And so far, I think it's great. I mean, you've seen so many people want to make music and being exposed and new sounds coming, and it's a good thing, I think.
Well, I just love the evolution and all of that. Um, Recently, as you may have noticed, I've had some conversations with um, people who we know, and I get the feeling that there's this kind of debate between what an artist should do. Um, so obviously, like an Oakenfold, Tiesto, Marcus Schultz, Barry Corson, Paul Van Dyke, the list goes on. They came from kind of the era of DJing turned producer, and we're kind of starting to see like the new generation producer turned DJ. Do you think that
Yeah.
has a bearing on the scene? Um, because they're two different skill sets. Obviously, both can feed off each other. But what are your thoughts on that kind of reverse role?
Well, yeah, I think that of course, in the past, it was the DJ entertaining the crowd and kind of providing the entertainment for the night, and more or less giving the fans a journey. He knew how to build the set and to create, a whole element to the night, as in we all know that Marcus is more or less known for doing stuff like that. I mean, that's what gave him lots of his credibility as a DJ, because he was so good at building a set. And I think people with that background, they knew very well how to, entertain the crowd and to play, uh, what they might want, and be able to read the crowd. I mean, they were skilled into this thing. Of course, later on, they wanted to create their own music, which is natural. I think everybody wants to do that. That anyone that loves music, he at some point or other, he kind of wants to create his own music. Now, yeah, I know what you mean. We had situations like with Martin Garrix and people like that, that they created like a track, and it went over well, and then they did another one, and then they kind of start getting requests for gigs, and you have this guy going out and supposed to play for a crowd when he has no knowledge of reading the crowd or building a set or any of those things, which is kind of a difficult situation because he has no experience in doing so. And that could lead to kind of basically uh, the audience expecting, if they were not, into how, well, that's how everything's started, they expect to hear an artist come out and play, let's say, all the hits and more high tempo stuff, and kind of like that's it. And this is bad for the art of DJing, because the DJ is more or less supposed to start off from the beginning, if it's one artist, or at least the opening act, do his thing, and then build up the set throughout the night. And I mean, someone that has been into this stuff from let's say, the beginning, or anyway, along the way, knew that this is what is expected. And so when you see some artists, let's say, might go and play like for 2 hours, and they kind of play a fast-paced set with all the stuff that are on Beatport or stuff like that, it's not a good thing. I mean, you want someone to have a bit of diversity. You want the vocal tracks, you want the slower stuff, you want the higher energy, because that way you can really build up the tension in the crowd and get everybody really to expect to remember the night in the end and say, yeah, that was a unique experience. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that maybe these producers, they should kind of, study how it was done, or at least, experiment and do stuff like that. So you keep the art of DJing alive. Otherwise, it's like, we're going in a different direction, which necessarily, I don't know if it's a good thing or not.
Yeah, I kind of agree because I find no, well, there's two parts. I find DJing really interesting because obviously the evolution that somebody could bring, the journey as we've talked about in a set. But on the other hand, I understand wanting to produce your own music and kind of incorporate that into your sets as you constantly are traveling or DJing or whatever it may be. But to kind of piggyback on something I've talked with other artists about, it seems interesting that everybody has their own background, whether they came from DJing or producing, but their opinion on how to go about that and what it creates. I mean, what I'm getting at is, I feel like there are certain artists out there, and the way the scene is that people force themselves into doing gigs to stay relevant, but they might not provide the best music or the best journey. And I don't know if that's just me being in the scene or just how things, like you mentioned, the Martin Garrix or, the EDM craze, as people describe, has
Yeah.
occurred. And also, you know, you're starting to see that there's more DJs coming out, especially after the tragic death of Avicii last year, about
Yeah.
the mental health of the business side of things creating problems. Um, I know Armin van Buuren has acknowledged it. I know a few other artists. Gareth Emery stepped back. Yeah, I mean, he's still, of course, they're still doing stuff, but they realize maybe. So, what are your thoughts on artists like that, like Avicii, who was an amazing producer that was thrust into DJing, but he had people around him that preferred to make the money than pay attention to the man himself and how he was feeling about it. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
like mental health in the industry?
Yeah, I think they're absolutely right about that. I think, I mean, you see that when someone gets, let's say, popular, of course, for them, yeah, you could create lots of tracks. Unfortunately, the situation with the tracks is that with music in general is that you're not going to get the kind of money that you know would be able to allow to continue. So gigs and events in general are what kind of put you on the map, and you need to take gigs to be able to stay, like you said, relevant, and of course to get the fans, to give them what they want, and to be able to keep evolving as an artist. Now the problem with that is that, as you mentioned, yes, it can lead to very stressful situations, anxiety, and all that you saw that happen in the scene. And yeah, because the pressure is very real. I mean, I talk with artists, on Facebook and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, you see that it's always kind of like they might have pressure to finish off a track, send it to the label, to go to this gig. I mean, if you are let's say the harder you work, the harder you, let's say, are you're more successful, and things elevate, but at the same time, the expectations are higher. And if you are, let's say, a person that is more emotional, or, you can't deal with all the situation, it might lead to depression. It might lead to, I don't know, alcohol, drugs, stuff like that, depending on, of course, what kind of person, how he is as a person, of course. And I think the right thing to do is, from what I see anyway, is to kind of be involved, but kind of pace yourself. I mean, and the industry, of course, should understand this, and the artists themselves, that you cannot do everything. I mean, you cannot sit and run. Forget your sleep, forget this, forget everything, and kind of put everything into that, because I mean, you are human. In the end, you will crack. You will not be able to do everything. Maybe this is why some artists, they hand over, let's say, maybe the artist pages to, other people to handle them, or, the musical accounts or stuff like that, and or why they get managers to deal with, like I said before, bookings or other things like that, so they can be able to take away kind of some of the pressure, because at this point, the artist is more or less supposed to do everything. In the past, it was the artist was being discovered, and the manager was doing everything for the artist. Now, I mean, the artist might have to be involved into doing everything if he's wants to succeed. And I mean, there's so many hours in a day, and he has to make music, and he has to maybe work someplace if it's not his full-time job, and pressure with family, with friends, with everything, and all that might lead to a very stressful environment for the artist. And maybe he decides, to even leave the music altogether. Even if he's qualified to do it, he might do it. I've seen a guy that he was creating a lot of pretty good music. He had a good sound and everything, and he kind of more stepped back from everything. And he said that, I don't know, at some point he might return, but right now he prefers to kind of stay out of it, get into hiking and nature and photography and stuff like that. And, maybe it's at some point he will return, but you see that at least the good thing is with all this, that people and the industry are starting to understand the situation that these people are into. I mean, as fans might see, like, I don't know, someone like Marcus Sauls, for example, as being like, wow, what the life he lives. He goes to all these countries, he travels, he plays for so many people, he has a great time. But I mean, being at his events and seeing him, especially on the open to close sets, I mean, yeah, he loves what he does. This is why he's so successful. He loves his fans, and he spends time with them. He makes a point every single time to do this at his performances. But on the other hand, it's a very stressful situation. I know he loves doing it, but this is why the fans themselves have a responsibility, I would say, to embrace the artist, either via social media, messages, or even when you see the make a point and, feed, let's say, the artist's enthusiasm, because it's a vital part of keeping the artist motivated and feeling in a way loved. So this is something I think that people need to do. And like this that you might see on the internet with people kind of, the debates about their favorite artists and, the hate sometimes that comes through and all that. I think people should forget that and people should get into you support the guys you like and you love and drive them to keep on going. And, there might be some low points in some artist's career or personal, but I think if you love them and you respect their music and them, you should kind of try to motivate them and don't remember them only when they're, successful, but motivate them even in the darker days. I think this is what is important to be done. And that way the artist can keep on doing what he loves and the fans can be entertained at the same time. And it's a win-win situation, basically.
Awesome. Well, I think on that note and positivity that I love, I agree. We should wrap up. Obviously, I'm going to put links to um, the blog. Is there anything that we may have missed, or where people can find you on social media?
Uh, yeah, you can find me on Facebook with as Kostas W Voulgaris. I have a SoundCloud account, but as my, when I produce some music, I did on various labels, but I haven't had something new since 2017. Maybe throughout the year, I'll have something else coming out. I'm working on various projects, so we'll see about that. Um, yeah, on Transfix, all my reviews or interviews are under the name DJ S Dragon. So if you see that name, that's I've done those reviews. Um, yeah, I have of course my own blog, but I haven't updated that in a while. And yeah, you can see about if you search Epica artists on Facebook, you can find our roster and all the artists we're involved with, and keeping up to date with those guys as well. So yeah, something like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for chatting with me, and hopefully we can do this again in the future. And have a great day or night.
Yeah, of course. You're most welcome. It was my pleasure to be on your show, and I hope everybody that will listen will enjoy it. It was a pleasure doing this, and yeah, let's keep on keeping trance alive, and in general the dance music, you know, community to keep on, being what it is, and only positivity and good music.
Agreed. Well, I will talk to you soon.
Okay.